I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing My Island by Cosmos. My Island is a 2 to 4 player tile placement legacy game from Cosmos and is the spiritual successor to My City. Well, there's also My City Rolling, right? That's another conversation. But My Island. This game over here is going to have you building out your island across 24 episodes, each of which is going to be adding more rules to the basic idea of the game. This is a spoiler-free review, so I'll be telling you my thoughts and opinions, as well as how to play the first episode, but after that, you're kind of on your own. Open those delightful packets, learn the new rules for the next series of 3 games you're playing through, and then continue until you've played all 24 games. But with that said, the basic idea is you are trying to place tiles onto My Island over here. What you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and draw a card from one of these piles, well, from the card stack over here, and then find the associated tile and placing it down onto the island. There are a few small rules you do have to touch as you place it, and at least for the first episode, you cannot build in the center 2 colors. You're only building on the beach and then that next color to the beach as you build out your island. It's also worth noting you're going to be getting points for every house you place on the beach. You start at 10 points, you get points for every house you place on the beach, and you'll be losing points for every uncovered beach space at the end of the episode. That's it. That's pretty much how you play episode 1. Let's go ahead and just draw one more tile. So for example, I can place this over here, making sure to prioritize the beach over here, place that out. Then I'm going to draw the next tile. We have this one. I do have to touch a previously existing tile. This is actually a great placement over here. I can slot those down over there. And that's it. That is the game. Place tiles out, match them on the board, try to go ahead and get as many points as possible, repeat going through this pile until you eventually placed all your tiles or cannot do so, or alternatively, it also happens you can also run out of the cards, meaning the episode ends either when all players have tapped out, when they haven't been able to place their pieces, and you can pass and lose a point to not place a piece, but at a certain point you have to try to make a judgment call as to what's worth more points for you, so that either ends when all players have passed out, or alternatively, when the deck is empty, that triggers the end of the episode. Pretty straightforward. The base game is pretty straightforward. The base game is basically draw a card, place a tile, not a lot of rules complexity. This is a similar arc to My City. Starts off very slow, very basic, and then it adds complexity, rules, components, and all of those things as you play through the next batch of episodes. Which is kind of a very short how to play, but that is the how to play of My Island, which means it's time for my review. Now I should note before diving into this review that I have only played 15 of the 24 episodes. But it's been a year since I played my last episode. It's been a year since I played episode 15, a little over a year. At this point, we're like at 14 months or so since I played episode 15. And at this point, I'm not confident that I'm ever going to finish My Island. Take that as you will, as far as we'll get into my thoughts and opinions soon, but this is a review based on the first 15 out of all 24 episodes. And I should note, I am someone who has played My City like 9 times. That's 24 games times 9. That's a lot of plays of My City. I played My City Roll and Write like 3 or 4 times. I'm a big fan of the My City franchise, which is why this one has been a bit of a disappointment for me. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my thoughts. It's not going to follow my usual structure. I'm just going to dive into my initial experience with it, as it kind of, then from there how it arced up, and then where I am with it now. Overall, my first play of My Island was actually, I want to say PAX Unplugged 2023, if I'm not mistaken. That was my very first play. I got a demo session. I played it. I was like, okay, definitely starts off light. I come cruise to see where it goes. But honestly, that's how My City starts. My City, which is more polyomino in shape, and obviously a different structure of the rules as far as how they iterate, they all start off that way. So great. I was very excited for My Island. It was one of my most anticipated games. I got to play in. I was like, good. This is good. It's a good start. It's not yet where I need it to be. But frankly, My City is not yet where I need to be based on game 1. But hopefully it'll arc upwards. Hopefully it'll start getting to a point where, oh my gosh, the decision space is interesting and complicated, and as I add things to the board, it's a satisfying experience that I really enjoy, and I just don't think My Island ever hit that for me. My Island does add rules complexity to the game as you go. Again, you'll be opening those packets, you'll add more rules, you'll be doing more things, you'll add more components, and it certainly does get more satisfying. But I think for me, the arc was in the first, I don't exactly remember which episode adds what, but I want to say somewhere around maybe the games 4 through 10 or so were the most interesting, but even then, it never arced up to the point where My City got for me. It always just became slightly more interesting while still not being super satisfying. And I don't fully know why. I don't have a clear checklist as to why that is. I do know from trying different kinds of shape-based tile laying games that polyominoes do tend to be my favorite when it comes to this kind of shape placement. I do find the hexes slightly less satisfying than the polyominoes as far as the Tetrisy puzzle of fitting it all together, partially because you can't look at a board like this and say Tetrisy puzzle. You can look at a polyomino board and say Tetrisy puzzle. But outside of that, I think it's more than that. I think even just the way the board is designed, as far as the hexes over here and the inward center, I find it's less satisfying to build out this board than it was to build out My City. It's hard to fully cover this game without constantly comparing it to My City, but that kind of legacy is there as far as a game that, again, I have over 200 plays of My City, 200 individual plays, not full arc plays, and I haven't been able to finish My Island, and 14 months later, I'm kind of at the point where I give up. And I think for me, a big part of the reason I gave up is because as we tended towards those later episodes where it gets to, again, I don't know the exact count, but, episode 10 through 15, maybe 12 through 15, whatever it was, towards the later arc of My Island, I felt like it just wasn't that interesting, the things that they were adding. The things they were adding didn't make the game more enjoyable, it just made the game more complicated. And don't get me wrong, to be fair, and again, comparison-wise, to be fair to My City, to be fair to My Island, My City definitely had a few rules here and there that I felt jumped the shark a bit. Across those 24 episodes, I mostly am a fan of the overall arc of My City, but there are a few episodes here and there where I feel like it just gets complicated without better. The problem is My Island never shifted upwards enough as far as the complexity of the experience relative to the satisfaction of what I'm placing and what I'm getting out of it, and the rules they added mostly didn't feel as elegant. I'd say most of the rules that were added, the first few rules, again, I'm trying to be spoiler-free, so I'm not getting into them, but the first few rules I liked. They added more bite to the experience, but almost everything outside of those first few rules, at least up until where I got up to, just added things that felt like they were giving you stuff to do without feeling natural to the puzzle at hand, at least in my experience. It's kind of a incomplete review, as any review that I'm trying to be spoiler-free generally is, because I can't tell you the specific rules I did or didn't like. I can't tell you the specific areas that I liked what they did here and I didn't like what they did there. I will say that most of the rules they added didn't feel like they made the game better. It felt like they just made the game more complicated. There are a few specific rules that really added to the mental crunch of trying to fulfill multiple objectives at once, and I think that's the main thing I liked about My City. The idea that as you place different polyominoes down onto your board, you're trying to be mindful of like 5 different things as far as how you're going to score points. And My Island hit that a little bit, but then just got complicated and fiddly. Not even complicated, just fiddly. I would say just fiddly without adding to the experience fairly quickly. And here I am, 14 months later, and realizing that if I did power through the last 9 episodes, it would be for the sake of saying I finished it, and not because I actually want to anymore, and I'm someone who's saying this as a huge fan of the original games. So that's kind of where I am in this. Final thoughts-wise on this one, it's hard to rate it because I have to give it credit for the fact that I did play through a whole bunch of games getting here. I think instinctively I do want to give it a 3 out of 5, but do take into account that I did play through 15 episodes, and I enjoyed it decently enough, just not enough to power through the rest just for the sake of completing it. So I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. It might be a little bit lower than it should be. Sometimes I find when I'm comparing things to other things, it does tarnish my rating a bit. Maybe this would be a 3.5 for you. I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, it might be a 5 for you. You're you, I'm me. We're different people over here. But I'd say maybe it's a slightly higher on average. For me, I definitely wanted more from the experience than I got, so I'm coming in at a 3 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, I think this one's easy. Definitely check out My City. I think it's fantastic. It continuously holds up. I just played another arc of it recently. It's just a good game that I really enjoy the overall development. One of the most accessible and most affordable legacy games you can play. And then also check out My City Roll and Write, or Roll and Build, I think it is. My City Roll and Build, which I think is slightly less satisfying as far as the overall arc of it, but it does give you a different little puzzle as far as how you build things out and roll your dice in order to get things done. And I enjoy both of them in very different ways. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.